And we're back for another Stop for a Thought. Next up is Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, which for some reason you can't tell is the adaptation of Homer's The Odyssey, generational myth of the same name, detailing Odysseus' 10-year journey back home to Ithaca after the Trojan War. Now, when it comes to Christopher Nolan, I wouldn't consider myself like a die-hard mega fan, but it is undeniable that this man has never made a bad movie. To me, Inception, Interstellar, The Prestige, and The Dark Knight are pretty well airtight, near 10 out of 10 movies. His signature montage style editing always draws me in, and the way he plays with time and non-linear storytelling just kind of makes idiots like me feel really smart and often rewatch his films. I went and saw Oppenheimer twice opening weekend, which I ended up reviewing as a 9.8 out of 10, which is wow, one of the highest scores I've ever given on the channel, and one I'm afraid I'm actually gonna have to walk down to just a flat 9, I think. I'm guessing the hype was just certainly in the air that evening. But with his previous film passing $1 billion gross worldwide, achieving 7 Academy Awards across 13 nominations, including taking home Best Picture that year, it's fair to say the whole world was already set for whatever he was gonna cook next. And like, how can you not? It's Chris Nolan. And not only that, yet again he's going for something undone. Every inch of this film is shot exclusively on 70mm IMAX, featuring an ensemble cast on location with real built and assembled sets, practical lighting like fucking candles and fire, with some of the most noticeably impressive costume work I've seen in forever. Like, this is some heavy aura. So this was no doubt one of my most anticipated films of the year. Certainly not a ton of wiggle room for this kind of film to go wrong, which raises the question, why is this film getting so much hate? Is it the casting of a trans actor as a warrior of Troy? Is it the casting of Helen of Troy as a black woman? Or is it perhaps the lack of Greek accents for traditional accents in bland Hollywood dialogue? Well, let's just get into that. For the first third, it took a while to fully pull me in, which is fine. I know like a lot of people aren't even going to try, given all of the controversy surrounding the film, the cast and whatnot. And all I can really speak to that is by saying Travis Scott being the first voice you hear, followed by the appearance of Elliot Page and some of the other questionable names in the cast, it absolutely does read like more of a gimmick to get tickets sold, rather than the talent embodying a historical role with uncanny resemblance or a specific performing quality. And I hate to say it, but to be honest, I did kind of find Elliot Page a bit distracting. And no, not because they're trans, or because their line reading was a little bit weak in their final scene, but because why the fuck would this 5'1" boy soldier be fighting in the Trojan War? And they're running around like that. Besides that, I think my issue with the cast here is that Hollywood just kind of seems to be stuck in the same casting cycle. Like, Anne Hathaway's in 3 movies this year. Tom Holland, Jon Bernthal, and Zendaya are all in Spider-Man in just 2 weeks. She also shares the screen with Robert Pattinson, who were both in this, The Drama, earlier this year, and Dune Part 3 later this year. When, like, back in the 90s, I remember it was a pretty substantial feat when Jim Carrey was in Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, and Ace Ventura in the same year. Like, that was pretty crazy. Now we get Pedro Pascal at least 5 times a year, and you gotta show up. I'll also say that Matt Damon as Odysseus kind of threw me off at first. Maybe it's me, maybe I'm not like the biggest Matt Damon fan. I haven't seen a ton of his films, granted, but originally I thought it was a kind of rather bland and uninspired choice. And I'm not gonna lie, a couple of his lines did kind of stand out as a little generic for the time period, but things like, "Let's go," and "I'm bringing it all don't really bother me as much as him looking at a plate of food and going,
that looks delicious.
Or like some bullshit like that. I was a really big fan of his character. Like, I think trying to defy fate and go against the gods is the basis for something pretty special and compelling. But yes, he honestly took some warming up to. However, by the end, I was really feeling it. And I have no doubt saying that he will probably get nominated, as well as Anne Hathaway, who centers the heart of the story exceptionally and really shines in the latter half. It's also nice to see Tom Holland in something that's not Spider-Man. I think he did a really great job and was easy to root for. But for me, the standout performance was without a doubt Robert Pattinson as Antonius. From the expressions on his face to the sinister and arrogant cadence which he delivers his lines, I have no problem saying, give this man an Oscar nom. At least a nom. I just absolutely loved him in a villain role, and I can't wait for Dune 3. For the opening while, I was really enjoying Ithaca, exploring this world, and seeing just the commitment to everything on the technical side. Again, I was entranced by the montage-style editing, carrying you with grace from scene to scene, jumping through time, helping you piece the details needed, blended together with yet another excellent Ludwig score, who's back reuniting with Nolan after his Oppenheimer win. Somebody once said, if you are working on a Nolan set, you are the best at what you do, and that really shows. Like, every role on set could not have been filled better. Real talk, the film's likely to get heaps of awards praise, which I project Oscar wins for both set and costume design, potentially a cinematography win for Hoyt van Hoytema, who's also back again with his loud-ass IMAX cameras to effectively fit the scale of the story into every frame. You know, it's easy to say a film just looks good, but too often when I go, it is often amateurly lit or or just flat out too dark, can't see what's going on. When here, I had a moment when I recognized that was not an issue. The lighting was truly excellent. The visual contrast was also appropriate, and not once was something out of sight or too dark that wasn't meant to be. All this is a balancing act with the effects, many of which were surprisingly practical. The sparse use of CG against the old school visual tricks used here really goes a long way in grounding things realistically, given the mythology calls for monsters, couple giants, and other impossible spectacle, and with all that, not once did anything appear out of place or look fake. Like, I was fully sold on the adventure, which, characters and plot aside, which all welcomed me into the experience as it set sail when the middle hour starts to coast along. But it is not without its issues. For starters, with all that wrapped into an under 3-hour epic, it's fair to say that not every detail of a 10-year story is going to be done full justice, especially being that most of their journey was just getting on an island or getting beat to hell at sea, where they must overcome and survive to their next impending challenge while losing lives. So it's safe to say that lots got cut, and thankfully, or else this would have been a rather redundant film, or potentially an excellent miniseries. But when you choose to include just the highlights, and they each contain and retain the same familiar beats, with Odysseus' men go to an island, there's a mythological threat on that island, oh no, now they're stuck, people are dying, now we all run back to the ship screaming. Then I question if they had just dressed it up a little bit differently, maybe I wouldn't have noticed that the film gets a little repetitive somewhere between the 5th and 6th set piece. But at the same time, I think it's kind of cute that we get this Pirates of the Caribbean shit like 4 different times. I was having fun, and simultaneously, the length we spend touching on these set pieces, where one might see as frustrating and grueling, I'd almost say that is the point. Because we spent a solid amount of time unraveling these horrors in a way that made me want to move on to the next thing, not out of boredom, but out of dread for what's depicted on screen. Like, shockingly, there are some frightening moments, which is kind of exciting to see from Nolan. It felt unique, and there's an entire 15-minute segment that could have succeeded as its own horror short. Like, it kept my heart rate pounding in thrilled anticipation. However, like I said, the film at a point just kind of tends to fall into a slightly repetitive groove, which perhaps overstays itself by about 10 minutes. Also didn't help that this is a rather loud film, and for some reason, anytime I see a movie that's projected to do well and I go opening day, some asshole in the back decides, let's turn up the volume all the way so that the peak volume is just distorted, and people gotta watch it like this. So for the action scenes, or anytime a sword would clash, a crowd would rush, thunder would strike, or a beast would shriek, often I'd be sitting there like wincing, which sometimes effective because it's undeniable that the sound mixing and editing is remarkable, especially for Polyphemus. But like I said, somewhere between the 5th and 6th set piece, I just had to run out and take a break, and also tell somebody. I said, please turn it down just a hair. I come here 4 times a month. I know how this works. And by the time I came back, the film kind of switched gears into the final stretch, and I was a little surprised to see how much it actually fully brought me back in. If for the first third I was really loving the world building, and the second third I was really loving the set pieces and the story, for the final third, it fully sold me on these characters and the relationships behind them. I was invested to get things restored and finally see this man triumph. And I honestly got a little teary-eyed at a point. And for the finale, the movie just fucking brings it. And we get probably one of the more emotional highs of the film with the action and a culmination of great performances and character moments from not just Matt Damon, who finally won me over, but just about everyone. Guys, overall, the Odyssey is epic. It is a full-fledged feast. It's simultaneously very exciting and also exhausting in all of the right ways. The spectacle and technical side of it wowed me, and by the end, it kind of moved me. So, oh, fucking son of a fucking bitch. Despite a couple shortcomings, I actually had a pretty solid time, so I'm gonna go ahead and give this one a pretty generous but deserving 9 out of 10. I'm looking forward to seeing this one again, now a little more clear on the mythology, but for now, I enjoyed it. Those are my thoughts. Thank you for stopping. I hope you did enjoy. Please like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below. Thank you very much for watching my video. Don't forget to wash your hands, wear your seatbelt, and stay black. I will see you in the next one, probably for Spider-Man.